Welcome to this explainer. Okay, have you ever caught yourself wondering how a tiny, almost silent little desire in your head somehow snowballs into a bitter argument over, I don't know, whose turn it is to do the dishes? Or how that exact same mechanism scales all the way up to massive global conflicts? Well, today, we're breaking down an ancient philosophical text that serves as this profound, literally almost mathematical blueprint of the human mind and the exact mechanics of conflict.
Let's kick things off with a pretty fascinating interaction that sets the whole stage. The text opens with a student named Ananda. Now, Ananda goes up to his teacher, the Buddha, totally confident, basically assuming that human nature and this whole chain of cause and effect are just simple, easy to grasp. But his teacher immediately shuts that down. The Buddha warns him, saying, essentially, do not say that. He explains that because humanity fails to really deeply understand this process, we're all tangled up like a weaver's yarn. We're completely knotted up like a ball of string, totally unable to escape our own suffering. It's such a brilliant metaphor, right? What looks simple on the surface is actually this invisible, deeply entangled web that catches absolutely all of us.
So the crucial concept we need to unpack here is called Paṭicca-samuppāda, or dependent origination. And I found this absolutely fascinating because it's not just some abstract, lofty theory. It's essentially the ultimate root cause analysis for literally everything we experience. It's the core principle that nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in isolation. Every single state of being, every moment of suffering, every conflict, they all arise because a very specific condition preceded them. If you take away that condition, the result just vanishes. Poof, gone.
Unwinding the causality chain, tracing the symptoms back to the source. Let's see how this actually works.
What is incredibly cool here is the strict if-then logic the text uses to work backward. It's exactly like a detective arriving at a crime scene. We start with the ultimate end result of human suffering, aging and death. And the text asks, okay, what is the condition for aging and death? Well, it's birth. If there were absolutely zero birth in any realm whatsoever, human, heavenly, animal, you name it, aging and death simply couldn't exist. And why does birth happen? Because of becoming. Why becoming? Because of clinging. And clinging roots directly back to craving. It is this flawless, unbroken chain of cause and effect.
But if we follow that chain even deeper, we can actually trace it back to the very spark of awareness. So where does craving actually come from? Well, it's born from feeling, experiencing pleasure, pain, or just neutrality. And feeling, that comes from contact with the world through our senses. But contact requires name and form, which is basically just the physical body and our mental elements. And all of that relies on consciousness. The text is relentlessly peeling back the layers of our everyday experience to show us that our desires don't just magically appear out of thin air. They're the mechanical, step-by-step result of our senses simply making contact with reality. And this right here reveals the ultimate foundation of the human experience. Name and form and consciousness are entirely 100% interdependent. The text actually notes that if consciousness didn't descend into the mother's womb, the physical form just couldn't develop. And conversely, if consciousness didn't have a physical form to anchor itself to, it couldn't experience the world at all. They lean against each other. It's like two bundles of reeds propping each other up. You literally cannot have one without the other. And together, they kickstart that entire chain of feeling, craving, and eventually suffering. How craving creates conflict, the bridge from internal desire to external weapons. Okay, now we are at the absolute core of these mechanics. And I gotta say, it is a terrifyingly accurate psychological roadmap. It begins completely internally with craving. And because we crave, we naturally start seeking. When our hunt is successful, we gain. That gain leads straight to possessiveness. And here is the tipping point. Once we possess something, and it honestly doesn't matter if it's an entire empire or literally just your favorite coffee mug, we immediately develop defensiveness. We get that urgent, anxiety-inducing need to guard our stuff. Now, if you're wondering why any of this matters to us today, well, the text explicitly links this internal defensiveness to an absolute explosion of real-world conflicts. Everything from physical violence and actually taking up weapons, down to everyday quarrels, bitter disputes, yelling you at one another, slander, lies, all of it. They literally stem from that initial, tiny internal spark of defensiveness. The text proves that massive global conflicts and your personal arguments at home are actually born from the exact same microscopic seed of clinging. Deconstructing the self. Why our definitions of I trap us.
According to the source, people absolutely exhaust themselves trying to categorize their identity into specific, rigid views. On one hand, some folks believe the self is finite, tied strictly to this physical temporary body. But on the other hand, others will passionately argue that the self is infinite or formless. But the really profound insight here is that both of these are conceptual traps. Regardless of which box you choose to put yourself in, you're still clinging to an impermanent concept. You're just manufacturing an identity that, sooner or later, you're going to feel forced to defend. The text then throws out this totally fascinating argument that completely challenges the way we normally think about our feelings being ourself. Just think about it for a second. When you feel pleasure, it's temporary, right? When that pleasure fades away, does your self die with it? Obviously not. The exact same goes for pain and neutrality. Since all these feelings are constantly rising up and dying away, it literally makes zero sense to anchor our permanent identity to them. If the self can't be defined by something that constantly dies, well, identifying with our fleeting emotions is just a profound illusion. The architecture of the mind, the 7 stations of consciousness. So the source actually maps out every possible state of existence. We're talking from standard human beings with different bodies and perceptions, all the way up to these highly advanced, wild mental states, like beings residing in the realm of infinite space, infinite consciousness, or even a realm of nothingness. But hey, the crucial takeaway here isn't to try and memorize all these different realms. The text is making a larger point. A truly wise person realizes that even the absolute most elevated, formless state of consciousness you can imagine is still impermanent. Therefore, absolutely none of these states should be clung to or desired. The path to liberation, stepping off the wheel of conflict. So, how do we get out? The text lays out a very systematic process of letting go. A practitioner moves from perceiving physical forms, transcending them into infinite space, passing through nothingness, all the way to the total cessation of feeling and perception. By methodically moving through these stages, a person is literally short-circuiting that entire craving process we just examined. They are breaking the link between contact and feeling. They are just completely stepping off the wheel. And this whole process leads to the ultimate goal outlined in the text, vimati, or liberation. True wisdom, you see, isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's recognizing this impermanent so deeply, so fundamentally, that the mind entirely detaches from the illusion of the self. The actual inner architecture that demands conflict is just entirely dismantled. The mind simply cannot be provoked into defensiveness, suffering, or violence ever again. I'm going to leave you with this final, really profound thought to ponder, based on everything we've unpacked in our explainer today. If every single dispute, every lie, and every weapon ever taken up is born from the need to defend what I own and what I am, if we truly unravel the illusion of that self, is conflict even possible? Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the root of things.